Welcome. My name is Jeffrey, and every week I teach you how to create a better yoga and mobility practice here, usually Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but this week won't be here Friday. But thank you for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk about lunges, which is so important. It's such a big part of yoga, such a big part of physical culture in general. There's a couple different lunges, a couple different things I want to go over. So let's get started. Let's start off with the pop quiz. Where should you feel the stretch in a lunge? All right, so you got a minute to answer this. The lunge is a complex movement. It uses your legs. There are variations of it, but in general, there is one main area of the body that you're supposed to be feeling the stretch. And I'm not saying you won't feel something throughout the body, just one main area. All right, 30 seconds left. And today I'm excited. We got a really great show or episode or live stream, whatever you want to call it. Getting right to the point. Right, last time, where should you feel the stretch in a lunge? All right. So the answer is in your hip, on the backside hip, the one with the leg that's back. And that's basically extension, hip extension on the back side. So whatever leg is trailing behind you, when you're in a standard lunge and you go low, that's the main place you would, let's say, feel the stretch. Not that you're not experiencing end ranges throughout the body, which we'll go over, but in general, that is where the stretch is felt. Okay, great. Let's check out today's schedule. Lunges, right? That's what we're going to talk about. I love lunges. Such a big part of the practice, and you can really modify them for many different practices. Not just yoga, this is a massive part of movement in general, all of physical culture, all of physical movement. We're going to go into the cue myth. I'm going to dispel or say that a cue is good. We're going to figure out what's going on with one of the cues that's commonly used with lunges and yoga. Pose breakdown, we're going to go over a couple different poses, which are lunges and the variations, and the sequences / isometric movement pathway or pattern. This is where we're going to break down the lunge or the poses that we go over in the pose breakdowns into sequences, and we're going to go over those all together. Before we go over to the studio, if you're wondering what is the studio, they said over here. So this is full studio. We're going to go over everything, but I'm going to wait till the end till we get there because I want to spend most of the time there. I don't want to really jump back and forth. So we're going to go over all this stuff first. I'm going to explain a couple things about lunges, and that's how we're going to roll. So let's get started. All right, so let's just start out. What is a lunge? Basically, a lunge, right, is a lengthened position in one leg with a knee bending in some way in the other leg. Let's just keep it real simple. And usually it's when you're in a like parallel or type linear type situation, although it could be also used in many other lateral situations, different sides like skandasana, lateral lunge. We're going to go over that as well. In yoga, there are 3 variations of the lunge, right? A basic lunge is just that step forward, step back, staggered. Let's say you're not heel toe, you're like hips width, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. You're feeling the stretch in the back hip. That's that basic lunge. Everyone does it. There are still variations of that as well. But in yoga, we have these 3 varied lunges with the back foot. So we have that traditional heel to the sky lunge, but then we also work with a variation where the back heel is down typically at a 45-degree angle. And then finally, we have it where the heel is down and the back foot is at approximately a 90-degree angle, perpendicular, let's say, to the front foot in some way. It does not have to be heel toe. Heel toe, that's not the Q myth, although I should have actually included that. We'll probably go over that as well. Besides those three variations, which we'll go over in the pose breakdowns, we'll explain what they're for. I mean, to be honest, let's just verbally discuss it. There is no definitive reason why people take the foot down at 45 and 90, other than it's the way that it is. So if you're practicing a yoga lineage and they're like, hey, the foot has to be strictly at a 45-degree angle or strictly at a 90-degree angle, that's fine. But just understand that's coming from usually someone's opinion. It is a variation of the lunge. I haven't discovered why specifically we do it in yoga. I would love your feedback if you know, like, hey, this is why the foot is at this angle and this angle according to the sun and the, you know, I don't know. Let's discuss. You could always leave something in the comments. I would love that. But in general, I have not found a reason why that lunge would be better than a traditional lunge with the heel lifted. In fact, I think it's just easier. So when the heel is down at an angle, whether it be 45 or 90, it's just easier to balance the pose. And I guess if you're doing more with the body, that could result in an easier practice, an easier path through the sequence. I'm just guessing with some of this stuff. Like I said, I would love your feedback on that. As far as the basic lunges and their variations, right? You have the lunge, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, and then you also have the split squat, which is basically the back knee slowly coming to the ground and, you know, lightly touching the knee to the floor. Some people don't touch the knee to the floor. All that's doing is limiting your range. So you really don't want to limit the range. When you limit the range, you're going to adapt to that limitation. And eventually you just won't be able to do that position anymore. So when we do the split squat, we're gonna make sure that we touch the floor. And there's also a reverse lunge. We're gonna talk more about that, right? So in general, lunges are huge. They're used for everything. In yoga, in life, moving. When you fall, you might take a huge step. That's kind of like a lunge. We go wide, we go heel toe, we go all of it. And you can do all of that if it is within your current realm. You wouldn't want to just push into an extreme position ever in anything. But at the same time, you do want to have the ability to do these, flexibility, mobility positions. Your body does call for various lunge positions. In yoga, we have these 3 variations, right? Where we talk about the heel down, 45, 90, and the heel up. In most of fitness and regular, let's say, physical culture, it's just the heel up. We don't really do too many of those other lunges, unless it's a lateral lunge or skandasana, which we'll go over a little bit at the studio. All right, so let's go over to the Q myth. Although I did say, I was going to go over a different one, but I have a different one. I have one all set up for us, so. The Q myth, 90-degree angle in the front knee. So you might have heard this before. It's really common. This is what people say. Keep a 90-degree angle in the front knee. And we're going to go over why this is important and what it's doing. In just a moment. Okay, what it does, when you keep the front knee in a lunge, right, regardless of the back foot being 45, 90, whatever, when you keep a 90-degree angle strictly in the front knee, you are limiting the full range. It just limits full range. Think of it like that. In the knee, the ankle, and the hip. So in all those joints, you're basically telling the body to stop at a certain point to create an aesthetic. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Yoga is about posing. That's what we're doing. But it is important to understand, as far as mobility goes, which is in movement, yoga in general, that you have to have full range, right? You still want to have the ability to do full range. And that would mean that you could make all the warrior poses and the lunges seem a little more extreme if you had the range, right? The reason we don't like seeing that as a teacher or sometimes as a student is because it doesn't fit the pose. We're posing, literally, it's a pose off. So try to understand the difference between actually doing a pose and finding the full ranges of motion. There's nothing wrong with keeping a 90-degree angle in your knee, but if that's all you ever do in a lunge and you religiously do it and you're afraid to go beyond, your body will adapt to that. It will forget how to go beyond, and then one day you will be forced to go that way and it'll be too much. FYI, when you walk downstairs, your knee goes in front of your toes all the time. That's how it works. So you're already taking your knee in front of your toes. It just depends on how far in front of the toes you can actually go. Now, the other cue I was talking about briefly was the heel-toe alignment. It's important I touch on this anyway. When you do heel-toe alignment in the hips, that could be problematic. So if you have really tight hips and you force the heel and the toe in alignment where the legs aren't hip-width distance in your lunge and you're forcing them in alignment like this, it could hurt you and it could create problems in your hips. You could overstretch your hip flexors and stuff like that. I used to have a problem where I did so much I couldn't lift my leg too easily. It was affecting my driving, right? Because it was hard to lift my foot off the brake and the gas. I know that sounds so crazy and dangerous. Not to where I couldn't do it, but it was like an effort. So if you have experienced a similar pain, I know many people that have had this from tight hips and going too quickly to heel toe. Not that you can't do it, but maybe you can't do it yet. So you'd want to be careful. You know, that's the cue myth. The two of them I threw in a bonus, but that's it. And it's important to understand why it's okay to take the knee forward. And we're going to go to the studio and we're going to figure it all out anyway. But before that, let's go to the pose breakdown. All right, so obviously we're going to go over lunges today. Or the lunge in general. I'm going to explain the lunge. I'm going to explain how it works. I'm going to explain the articulations. But also we're going to go over the split squat, which I mentioned before, and the reverse lunge. These are two very popular variations of the lunge in general. They're used in all of physical culture, movement culture, physical fitness, whatever you want to call it. I love all those terms. And then we're going to go over, I'll go over the ideal yoga alignment poses for the warriors and stuff with the back foot. That's relatively easy though. Like I said, this is more, as far as I could tell, was done to make it easier to balance, and it is not as challenging as these other lunges. In fact, I would challenge you to do the yoga postures with the heel up, all of them. And I think that creates a nice challenge in the practice in general. So what are the articulations of the split squat, the reverse lunge, the lunge in general? We have number one, hip extension and flexion, right? So in the beginning, the quiz was where is the main part of a stretch in the lunge, and that's the hip extension of the back hip. So whatever leg is back, that's where you should feel the tissue being opened, challenged. It's a loaded stretch, right? Using all your weight, you're getting low. But in addition, number two, you have knee flexion. And number three, ankle dorsiflexion. Now, if you have crappy knee flexion and ankle dorsiflexion, you will have a limited lunge. And I'm not saying crappy is it like it's not fixable. It just means that you don't have a good available range compared to what you might be able to actually do. And you just don't want to force that. So we're going to go over all three of these and how they work together in the practice. It's going to be the lunge, the split squat, reverse lunge, a couple yoga poses, and in the end, we're going to do a sequence. Let's go over to that. And the sequence is pretty much a mandala. It's kind of a circle. It could be broken apart. There are a number of different ways to do the mandala, which reminds me, I didn't even talk about the book today. So in this book, if you like mandalas, there is a chapter on mandalas. There's 3 or 4 different types of mandalas. One of them I completely made up, but it is a mandala. These are different ways to put the poses together. And that's just one chapter. This is a book about sequencing. It's a course book about yoga. You really can relate it to any lineage, any different practice, because it's not about my practice or my style. Like, you're not going to get certified in yoga frame. I mean, you could if you took the Yoga Alliance training, but I'm not saying this is a style of yoga. It's not. This is the framework, the underneath of yoga. Every lineage can be adapted to the principles in this book. There is no philosophy in here because that is a different realm, right? I'm not saying I don't love philosophy. I love it. But it is not to be confused with physical movement and the way we move. I would argue that sequences are not spiritual. And if they are, then it doesn't matter whether it's within yoga or CrossFit or whatever practice. So, I mean, this is just the nuts and bolts. I can't encourage you enough to check out this book. It's over 200, I think I said 250, but I was wrong. It's over 225 pages of knowledge that you can apply to yoga. It's mobility, it's concepts from FRC, FRA, it's from my mentorship in Ido Portal movement culture practice. I mean, I've done most of what everyone else has done in the advanced stuff, and I've put it into a manual that anyone can understand. And I would love for you to check this out. It's on the website yogaframework.com. You can also check it out on amazon.com. I can't seem to find my yoga deck. I have the cards where I do sequences, and you should check that out as well. That applies to mobility and yoga. That's the yoga sequence deck. I would love for you to check them both out, yogaframework.com. All right, back to the sequence. A mandala, basically a circle. Sorry for the plug, but you know, why not? We're gonna go high lunge, and that's gonna go to a split squat. So maybe we might do a reverse lunge, which I'll show you, into a split squat, and then we're gonna go into, oh, that's not the sequence I want. That is wrong. I apologize. Huh. I could have swore I changed that, and I didn't, so you're gonna have to give me a moment. I really apologize about that. Yep, here we go. All right, give me a moment. It's actually going to be a reverse lunge. Hopefully that fits. Split squat. And then we're going to go into a high squat or goddess. Oops, high squat. Oh, I'm so unprofessional. Please come back to my stream. Don't discount me for this one mistake. And then we're going to end with a lunge. Let's call it also split squat to stand. Sorry for that Windows sound. I don't even know if this is gonna fit. Nope. All right. Well, you know where we're going. Do you really need the aesthetics? I mean, my OCD is killing me. I need it. All right, that's better. That's better. Okay. It's not great, but I can deal with it. Let's go over what the sequence is in general. So it's reverse lunge, split squat. You're gonna step back. That's how we're gonna start it. Then we're gonna go high lunge, or I'm sorry, high squat goddess into a lunge, split squat on the other side into standing on the other side. Sorry, I had to fix it. Felt better. Okay, good. Mandalas. We're gonna reverse lunge from a split squat, a reverse lunge into a split squat, possibly, right? We'll do both. We'll step back to a reverse lunge. We'll do it also with a split squat. In the middle, we're going to do high squat, goddess, whatever you want to call it, and that will go to that same position on the other side, whether it's a lunge or split squat, doesn't matter, and then we'll stand. And then we'll start again with the leg and go back around. That'll be the mandala, a half or full. We can do both legs, and we'll just do a few. Hopefully I don't die in the process, because it'll be a nice, good mobility drill. All right, so I think that's it. We got over the pose breakdown, lunge, split squat, reverse lunge. Let's just review that real quick. You're going to do hip extension, knee flexion, and ankle dorsiflexion. We're going to go over these three poses, and then we're going to add these three poses into the mandala, the sequence. Reverse lunge, split squat, to high squat goddess, which is a neutral. Everyone knows that, hopefully. And then back to the lunge, split squat to stand. Sorry, I spelled that wrong. Lunge. Okay, lunge to split squat to stand. All right, cool. And don't hesitate to make fun of me for misspelling stuff on here. I apologize for that. All right, without further ado, I say we head over to the studio. Let's, oh, okay, there we are. I'm going to take off from here, and we're going to work together over there. And I'm going to just check everything to make sure the stream is still healthy. I have to check that. Got to have a healthy stream. All right, looks like we're doing okay. If anyone, I see there's someone here or two people, whatever. If you guys want to chat or say something, I'll check it out. All right, and let me get rid of myself here. Oh, sorry about that. So what is a lunge? Gulping it out. Welcome back. All right. What is a lunge, basically, right? It's three parts. I said the main stretch is going to be in your hip, of course. But then there's also these other parts where there's ankle, knee flexion. There's knee flexion, ankle dorsiflexion. So what is that? Let's just start in a hands and knees position. We'll make it real simple. You can follow along, or you can do it. So once we're down in hands and knees, all I'm going to do is take one foot and take it outside my hand. Once the foot is outside my hand, I'm then going to walk my hands forward. And I might adjust a little in the back knee if I need it. This is going to be me finding knee flexion and ankle dorsiflexion. Now when my knee closes, right, that's flexion. Your knee might not go this far. So if you've been practicing the 90-degree angle for eternity, you might not feel comfortable going too far beyond that, and that's okay. That means that yours is going to be somewhere like that. But if you have more, right, I've been practicing more. This is what I have. I have a closing of the knee joint, right? Knee is flexed, the calf is touching the thigh, and ankle dorsiflexion is nice. My knee is beyond my toe here, and that's okay. I'm feeling a nice stretch. Not just in the front leg, but the back hip, even though it's down. If I tuck my back toe, lift my knee, now this is a deep lunge right here. And it might not look like the standard 90 that people are doing, especially in yoga, but realistically, this is the lunge that you want. This is your full range of motion. You want to be comfortable here. And if you're not, of course, reduce the position, but it is something to think about. Why aren't you comfortable? Where is the weakness? Is it pulling your knee? Do you feel it in your ankle? Stuff like that. So that's the anatomy of a lunge. And in the end, we're going to want to take the hands in line with the foot and then just kind of find more of this position. Notice my back heel, I don't sink into my Achilles too much. I try to have the heel a little bit lifted. That helps me to keep everything going. Right, and you can come back to hands and knees. You can go to the other side. Compare the two. What is it like on the other side? Take your hands again in front of the foot. How far can you go? What does it feel like to go forward? If you've been practicing 90 forever, you might not be able to go too far without feeling some sort of tension in your knee, maybe even your ankle. But like I said before, maybe you can go further. Maybe that's available to you, and that's also okay. What I didn't show on the other side is you can create a nice isometric here. You can lift your toes and your heel. So I have the toes lifted, I'm on all toe mounds. These are the metatarsal heads, right? You don't just have one toe mound, you have 5 toes, you have 5 toe mounds. And then the heel is lifted a little bit, so the toes and the heel are lifted. And then I'm tucking my back toe, adding a little more weight, more tension, and maybe lift the inside arm. That would create even more tension. And now I feel a nice little isometric as I do the lunge. And that can just help me to further figure out what's going on in my ankle dorsiflexion, my knee flexion. I wouldn't want to add a lot of weight if I couldn't go forward. When you see people wearing those lifting shoes, they have the high heels, the wedges, that's because, let's be honest, they have crappy dorsiflexion in their ankles. And that shoe is making up for dorsiflexion. Or what you see commonly is people put like the 45-pound weight and they put their heels under it. It's just like high heels, right? You can do that in back bends too. People lift the heels all the time in back bends, and that creates more room. It's just because lack of room. It is a compensation, plain and simple. All right, let's go over the split squat. Well, actually, let's go over the loaded lunge, because what happens is you're not just doing the lunge on the floor. You want to really be able to do a lunge, and that's called an active, or even in some cases, a loaded lunge. If you're holding anything, it's a loaded lunge. If you're not holding anything, it would be an active lunge if you're not using the floor like that. So what we'll do is we'll do a nice active lunge. I'm going to use the wall, make it simple. I'm going to take my left foot on the left, my right foot on the right, and I'm going to take them apart enough to where I feel that I'm close to maybe the beginning of the 90. I want hip extension as the main priority. This is where I'm going to feel the stretch. And I'm going to focus on keeping the back knee extended. That's really important. And as I bend my knee into flexion and my ankle into dorsiflexion, I should feel more of a stretch here, but also a balance between not going too far. So I'm going to go nice and slow. All right, and you might stop somewhere like here. Maybe you have more. Notice I'm trying to extend my back knee. I'm not trying to go knee to the floor. This is a full lunge. And I shouldn't need a lot or any momentum to step forward and back or to create any of this. I should be able to control all of it, or what I like to think is you own it. You're not renting it, right? This is part of your makeup. You're not just going to movement or yoga or CrossFit class. You're living it. Every day you're moving. That's just a small portion of your movement profile, those classes. All right, same thing other side. All right, I can use the wall first. Just find the lunge. The heel is lifted. I'm gonna work the hip extension in the back hip. At the same time, knee flexion and ankle dorsiflexion. There's a balance between all these joints. The yoga pose, or the poses in general, the moves are complicated. They're multiple joint articulations at once. Right? Find where you feel safe. Maybe it's a little lower. And when you're ready, right, you'll extend a little bit and then stand. That's what I would consider a lunge in general. Regardless of how far the knee bends, that's personal to where you are right now. Just be careful of not thinking the knee cannot go beyond 90. There is a ton of this stuff online. Knees over toes guy, shout out to knees over toes guy, and all that great stuff and material out there. So I want you to check that out, figure out your lunge. Let's move on to a reverse lunge. So reverse lunge is the same as a lunge, except we do it in reverse. Instead of starting, like in yoga, we might say we start in dog and then make a lunge and stand up. In a reverse lunge, you're stepping backwards to create the position. That's really the only difference. So we're gonna stay standing. I'm gonna maybe take my head over one foot, lean to that side slightly, lift the other foot, and then gently take it back. I'm gonna keep the feet hips width, and that was it. I just did it right there. Then I can come down, right? Lunge, and then I would step back. So reverse lunge, I lean a little to one side, right? Get my balance. Then I step back in reverse, and then I take the lunge, reverse lunge, and then I stand. So very similar to the lunge, but instead of just starting in one, when I use the wall, in yoga, it's commonly downward facing dog. In regular fitness, you might just start in a lunge in general. Like you might come like from here, right? And just whatever, wherever you're starting from. Reverse lunge is stepping back instead of starting neutral or from downward facing dog. Now let's move on to the split squat. So at first it sounds like it does not make sense because it's a lunge, right? It's not a squat, but realistically it is, right? It's a squat and half kneeling, right? It's a half squat. So if you start to think of it like that, it makes more sense. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lean to one side, right? I'll lift the other foot. Make sure I have balance first, right? You don't wanna just go for it. You wanna head over foot, lift the leg, come back. Now with the split squat, I want to tap my knee, right? Because it's a half squat. So half kneeling and then back up. That's a split squat right there. And what I did is I did a reverse lunge into a split squat. But you could easily be in high lunge and then add a split squat and then go into another position like warrior 2, warrior 3. You name it, right? You sequence it. So again, I'm just doing, let's do it just from a lunge, right? I'll set up a lunge. Right? And then I'm in a split leg position. That's how they're defining it. Split leg, squat, split squat. Back to the split leg. Some people call it split leg. So that's where all that terminology is coming from. The split squat, the reverse lunge, the lunge in general, the active lunge, the loaded lunge. How would I load these lunges? Real easy. 15-pound kettlebell, right? I could take it like in like a goblet squat kind of style. And I could just do the same thing. I can go reverse lunge, go really low, and then nice and slow. And now I'm loading the lunge. This is a loaded lunge. And I could do it with 2 kettlebells of equal weight, one of the same, right? There's a number of ways to add weight. I want to do the other side, even it out. Feels good. So you can really go far. You can see where people are getting these mobility drills. They're just loading it in different ways, side lunges and stuff like that. Let's go over those for a minute. So, I mean, first in yoga, just real simple, right? You got to think heels up, 45-degree angle, 90. That's really it. So it's just this turning in yoga. So when I was saying it's just for the balance and stuff like that, realistically, it is coming down to a lot of that. So those are the variations in yoga. Those were the split squat, the reverse lunge, and just, let's say, the loaded lunges. All right, the lateral. Let's find a wide leg position. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna go really light. I want you to evert the ankle a little bit. Just lateral lunge, right? Be okay everting the ankle. It doesn't have to be flat like that. Now this is just a lunge to the side. Knee flexion, ankle dorsiflexion, and then there's this hip lateral flexion. What I would suggest is taking the feet out, All right, you want the knees to generally track over the feet in some way. So what you do is maybe turn the feet out a little bit, and then as you come into Skandasana, you can then kind of come to the sides a little bit. And I'm just finding it. So if I'm down here, whether my heel is lifted or down, this is a lot of knee flexion, a lot of ankle dorsiflexion. If this is like a time limit, you're like, oh, I can't be in this long. That just means that you're not that strong here. That's it. Just means that these joints could really use more mobility work, more strength, more loading, but on a low level, right? You might take the weight and do like a lateral lunge like that. Why don't I just show you? So if you're having trouble and you're feeling weak there, you might reduce the position and just do something like that until you can feel safer, adding more load, more range. It's a tissue issue, as they say. This is the premise between passive, active, loaded. Everything standing is pretty much active. Adding weights are going to make it loaded. So sometimes body positioning makes it loaded as well. So that's the general gist of the lunges, side lunges, Skandasana, or just a lateral position. You're working ab and adductor in the straight linear. You're working the quads and the hamstrings. This relates a lot to internal rotation, why these side lunges are so important. So let's go into the sequence. I've combined the two. Super simple mandala sequence, right? Now that we know what we're doing, we're gonna step back to a reverse lunge. First one won't be the split squats. We're gonna come into goddess, which is basically like a double Skandasana kind of thing, high squat. And then we're gonna go to the back. We're gonna find that lunge, position yourself, and then you'll end up stepping to the back. So go from one side, facing the other. We can go back in the same direction or keep going around. So let's start at one side, maybe head over the left foot, lift your right leg, step it back, keep it wide, get low for the lunge. Now let the feet turn out a little bit, high squat or goddess, then to the other side, position the feet, go wide, right? Keep yourself or give yourself width, back to the lunge, start to extend the front knee, and then stand. Starting again with the right, head over the left foot, lift, all right, find the lunge, coming into goddess, high squat, to the back or back to the front, get low, and stand. We can go one more other direction. Why not? Use the mobility, maybe even this time, right? I'll go for it. We'll load it up. Nice and slow. Use the split squat. Oops, I almost forgot. Tap the knee. Now come into goddess, get low. Other side, split squat. Step. Coming back around, shift the weight. Split squat. Goddess. To the front. Split squat. Own it. And stand. Whew. I'm exhausted. This is the second class I've done of the day. Excuse me for panting. Let's go back over there. I'm trying to think. Do we do everything? We did the sequence. Yeah, we did it loaded, active, loaded, mobility, ISO-MP, yoga. What's the difference? There isn't, realistically. It's just the way that you present it, how you use it. We can simply use this mandala sequence. Here, one more thing. And I could change that for yoga and just continue on the other side like a centered sequence. I could start at the top, take a lunge, goddess or high squat, lunge to the back, standing split. You know, maybe warrior 3, and so on, right? You could end at the back. You can come back around to the front. So many options. Whew. So yeah, I'm sweating. But I hope you really got some good information off of this stream. Let me check into the stream itself. The stream is still healthy. That's a good sign. If you want to check it out, please check out the book Yoga Framework. Check out the card deck. I would love for some feedback if you have any, or more that I've had already. If you want to leave a comment on the stream, on the book, whatever, I'd love it. Thanks so much for joining me. I won't be here this Friday. I'll be away doing some other stuff and being out in the world and moving, which you should be too. But I will be back next week, Monday, Wednesday, and I think Friday again. We'll take it day by day. But my name's Jeffrey, and this is Yoga Framework, and I'm here to help you create a better mobility and yoga practice. I hope you have a wonderful day.